So yeah, the thing about the various associations that we make, I think, is quite an interesting one. You can form a kind of a personal relationship in a way with particular exercises. And whilst that might not be putting you sort of like in line with the tradition around that exercise, it still becomes hugely significant. I think there's an aesthetic quality, almost a poetic quality with Tai Chi. It's going to be quite interesting to sort of get people to write down their impressions of their favorite exercise. I might try that at some point. But for now, just focusing in our normal way. You do at the beginning of a session. Just think about your posture, your movements, your breathing. These little anchor points for your attention. Weight a little bit forward, hips dropping back. Breath, if it's useful, as though your lungs were down here in your belly, in the lower dantian. The image of moving through water. Now, sort of sloping down, you can just about see it on me when I stand there, the shoulders sloping down. Quite often we find our shoulders are a bit like that. Go from this to this, it's quite difficult because obviously the muscles there, if this is how you habitually hold your shoulders, then that's going to stretch the muscles out. So to start off with, it feels quite uncomfortable. It's quite good to just feel the weight of your arms. It's amazing how many times we find ourselves sort of standing or sitting, and we're sort of like that. It's almost like we're afraid our arm is going to drop off if it drops all the way down. And so this thing about the confidence in the posture, I think, is really important. That we learn that a lot of the habits of movement and posture that we've developed aren't as vital as we thought. We've often developed them for good reasons. Maybe we had an injury or lifestyle or work or whatever was causing it. But when that reason goes away, the posture and everything that implies can often remain. And it's quite hard work to break that down. Now just raising your arms a little. Let your hands drop. So let's start with this little exercise, swaying in the river. You're just letting your weight move forwards a little bit to roughly the balls of your feet. And what you might find is, if you're like this, it's going to be quite awkward. You want that feeling of your hips sinking back. And then you go back, front part of the heel. And you imagine you're doing this in water, hands out to your sides. And just use that image to program how your body is moving. Feeling the contrast as you go forwards and backwards between the front and back of your body. Because when you go forwards, it's the front part of your body and right down into your arms and palms of your hands that are pushing against the water. And then it's the rear as you go back. And see if you can just get a sense for that movement within your body. very much a case here. See, if I exaggerate here, I'm forward, then my arms come through, and then I go back, and my arms follow. So there's that little bit of opening and closing in chest and upper back that hopefully you've noticed in some of the previous sessions with different exercises. Your weight moves, but then there's a response all the way up through your body. Still aware of that central point as you pass through it, of course. But just changing the arms a little bit, going forwards, and then let your elbows just come in towards your sides. Now we have this image of carrying the tray of drinks. These are exercises to really help you to notice very small, subtle movements, changes within your body, sensations, and so on, that we want to try and recognize in the more complex exercises. It's more difficult the more complex the exercise. So the sensations are broadly classified as yang to yin. So when you go forwards, the front of your body is yang. When you go back, the back of your body is yang. And there's that smooth changeover between them. And maybe you can even feel as you go forwards, you know, the tips of your fingers or the palms of your hands, something like that. It's not an exact transfer to the other exercises, but it's more this skill, if you like to think of it like that, of actually looking inwards and getting a sense for what's going on within your body. And then coming forwards and settling just behind the ball of each foot, sinking down and pushing up. Looking now very much as you sink down for that feeling of releasing your hips, your lower back, the pelvis. But expanding, contracting. Now changing. Wild goose. and then parting the clouds. And then doing those last three movements in a little sequence, so harmonizing the three dantians. Really just feeling the contrast, the change from one movement to another. Observing what is going on within your body. Gradually, maybe even through the image, just with that sense of an awareness of your surrounding environment, gradually letting that awareness expand outwards in much the same way as the movement does, from the center of your body outwards, until essentially what will happen is the connection will get broken, but then you follow the movement back and start all over again. One more round. And then dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more time. And then pushing in four directions. Changing after this one. And then if you're going to make the turn, again, just see how that impacts on what's happening within your body. What's the contrast between doing this movement with the turn and without it? Switch sides. And then turning. Rowing a boat. Remember, don't let your knees go beyond your feet. It's not this, it's this. The hips going back. And then the same thing as we change to rowing the boat. So do one more, not rowing the boat, polishing the table, coming up with the turn. On the back, you can see how my hips are moving. Once more. Okay, now hands in front of your shoulders, pushing up, rolling your elbows forwards and down. Feel what's happening in your rib cage as you bring your elbows forwards, and then your upper back as you bring them back. So that should give you a similar sensation to the one that you felt in that swaying in the river, in that there's this movement between front and back. I mean, you may notice it lower down than I've just described. It doesn't matter. This time, as you sink down, turn. Coming up in the middle. The turn also makes a change from side to side now. And we go into bear play. Your hand coming down in front of the leg on that side of the body. So effectively your hand's moving slightly forward, but your body's moving away a little bit. So we start to get very distinctive opening and closing here where the arm meets the chest, onto the shoulder. Now do one more and make a change into hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. From here, turn out, turn your hand so the hand is palm up and then pushing off. And this time, the empty heel the leg away from your weight will come up, allowing a bit more ability for your shoulder and your hip to come around and your body to turn without needing to sort of throw yourself offline. It also gives you a stronger feeling of pushing up from the supporting leg because you're sinking down in this leg, and as you come across, you sort of push through the ball of the foot. It's actually quite a good movement for circulation in your legs. It's something that is done in seated exercise sometimes to encourage the circulation before we stand up. If you do it standing like this, as we do in this exercise and the following one that we'll do, which is cow gazes at the moon, it does help the circulation, I think, particularly in the lower part of your leg and in your foot and your toes, of course. And then change into cow gazes at the moon. This exercise and the previous two, hitting the ball in front of the shoulder and bear play, all push you right at the edges of our posture. You know, the foot comes up, or we roll the hips, or something like that. And it takes us, in a sense, right to the edge of what is achievable within that space that the posture in Tai Chi offers us. They're lovely movements for that. And they can really help you to get an appreciation of what's going on, not just within your body, but sort of around your body as well. Cow gazes at the moon, when you bring the arms up, You're looking between your hands towards the moon, so it's got quite an outward going quality to it. But now we're going to change to circling arms. So this is done in stages. So first of all, just straighten up your feet, carry on with gazing at the moon, but of necessity, it's now going to be a smaller movement. And just let the movement get smaller and smaller, but still be aware of those internal movements. And then just begin to push one hand forwards and then draw it back. At the moment, what I'm doing is just on a level, the arm extending a little bit. And now I'm going to let my right hand go up and over, and then dipping down. And we have circling arms. So we're not able to move the body through the space around us as much. Our feet are both on the ground. We're not raising the heels or anything like that. And so once again, the emphasis switches to slightly more subtle internal movements. That opening of the chest that I talked about with bear play is still present. Also here, where the leg meets the torso on both sides, that little valley called the croix. Maximizing the amount of movement possible within the limited space allowed, really, by the Tai Chi posture, which is an odd thing to think of it because it's very extensive movements that we get. Try not to twist your legs in. You can see what I'm doing now. You see my knee coming in. Try and keep the knee in line. So you will feel a pull on your legs as I turn. If I exaggerate, there you can see my leg being pulled in. The remedy for that is here, as my knee gets pulled in, I rotate the knee out again. Of course, we could go back to raising the heel, which would be another way of allowing the leg and foot to adjust to keep the knee in line. But this way, we start to become aware of an extension, a stretching between the knee and the groin. So my leg does that, but the rotation out stretches there. And that's quite an interesting thing. We'll come back to that again in a moment. Good, and then just shake out. So if I come a bit closer here, knees are in line with toes. If I turn, I can pull the knee badly out of line. So I want to keep it in line for several reasons. One is just to protect the knee. This is twisting up the tendons and the ligaments. I also don't want this to collapse because you can see what's happening when my knee goes in. Look what's happening to my shoulders. The whole structure is likely to collapse. So just that turning in of the knee can actually be quite destructive. The other reason is that this kind of opening up within the body, it creates a movement in the legs, even though you don't see it normally, you shouldn't see it. But it does create a movement, an energy flow in the legs. And finally, it builds into this notion of internal power, internal strength. There's a kind of structural link there as well. And it means that, for instance, if you're doing something like, say, double-handed push, an adjustment of the knee from here, oh, you can't see it, adjustment of the back knee from here to here can result in a stronger push going forwards. I felt that. So it's an interesting reflection on how the body links up, if you see what I mean. So it's something to gradually build into your practice. Someone put forwards and transferring your weight. So here, look at my back leg. I'm going to come closer there. There it's pointing in the direction of the back foot. There it's collapsing, but you can see I'm not doing that deliberately. It's just falling apart. So as I go forwards, I could either do this. So sometimes that connection helps us take the step, and we will see that when we come to do the stepping. So that's one thing we can do. We can say, okay, the foot's moving, so it connects the center of the body with the foot. But if we don't want to take a step, what happens is that rotation inwards is countered by the rotation outwards and the opening up and the inside of the leg. Same going back, although it always feels to me as though it's the front foot that's most commonly affected. If we were to turn, it would be a lot more obvious, but even without the turning, it's there, and that connection is there. It's one of the things that stops us going forwards more than 60%. Now we have to be careful with this. I've seen it in books. People say, in order to go forwards, you rotate your back knee outwards. That's an unfortunate phrasing, I think, because it makes it sound as though you're kind of pushing yourself forwards by turning your knee out, which you're not. It's very important that the rotation of the knee outwards is actually a response to the movement forward, or at least that's the best way to think of it to begin with. And then, of course, we go back and we feel that stretch on the inside there, and we just let the leg contract, that stretch contract a little bit. I'm going to turn the front foot out as always. So I'm moving this way, but my knee's stuck out there, but my knee will come in, and that helps to raise the foot. Sometimes that will happen as well, foot just naturally turns in, as this one is doing. And then stepping in. And on the other side, transferring the weight. Raising your toes and your heel. So again, trying to keep the knee in line. Really, I don't emphasize that to start off with people, because it's a lot of detail involved in that. And although I think there is a certain amount of risk to the knee, I think it's very low, because it would tend to be the empty leg that's bending inwards, because your weight will be moving away from that leg. So it's not like something that's going to instantly damage you. Stepping in. But it's one of those things that we really do want to bring into the practice as much as possible. As I say, it's actually quite useful to recognize that process, because here, rather than thinking you need to turn the knee out, here you can go, the body will turn a little bit. Oh, well, there you go. There's the energy for moving the foot in. So to an extent, it replaces the momentum that builds up in ordinary walking, where we angle forward slightly and we're being gently pulled forward by the pull of gravity. And then just taking a few steps, full steps. Changing direction. Shake out. So, right foot forwards. Bird holds its wings first of all. Another one of those exercises where the actual amount of movement is minimal from the outside, helping us to focus much more within the body. Then change into Fisherman castanet, where the very act of allowing the arms to just swing past your hips, which they do quite naturally, kind of extends your range of movement and your awareness outwards. One more time. pushing away. Again, as the image suggests, an outward focus, so you're pushing against something, and a stronger quality to the movement building. Remember your hands, you see there above my foot, not out there somewhere. Now we're pulsing the monkey. You should feel with this one a slightly stronger sense of the pull on the inside of your leg, particularly here when we turn on the front. You are actively turning down. So that's likely to happen. So we can go back and it's beginning to turn in. And forwards, I raise the heel. That gives me a little bit of extra oomph in the push because the weight's moving just that little bit more. And then we can factor into that turning movement. And you see now I get a much more wider range of movement for the center of the body. As soon as the foot comes in, I can turn that much further. So turning helps the foot to come in, but the foot coming in aids the turning. Okay. So the other foot forwards. So the same way, bird folds its wings. So you can see there's an increase in what you might think of as the level of complexity in the choreography of the movement, the pattern. But built up from within, stage by stage, starting with that basic awareness of those changes and sensations within your body. Now change into fisherman castanet. and then pushing away or pushing the boat. One more time. And then pulsing the monkey. Raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And this time, take your time with this next stage. Come to this position forwards in your left foot. Raise the right, so you're forward, yeah, raise your left hand. Step forward with your right foot and just go forwards and turn. Raise the back heel. Step through and forwards. Try and do that if you've got space a couple more times. And then going back, and this time raise the front toes, bring the foot in, move back. Take as many steps as you're able to take. And you'll notice for this, I am actually deliberately turning that foot in. It helps with the step. Try just as many as you've got space for going forwards. Then, you know, when you run out of space, you can go back. So the backward steps are this is how we would do step back and repose the monkey in the form that I've taken it from. The forward steps are a slight adaptation of a movement that just blends in nicely with it. One more time. And bring your feet down now. Good. It's a little bit more challenging there, but it's quite nice to do the stepping with the movements in one way or another. Lovely. So rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. Side. And your back. Around your hips. Legs. Light on your belly. On your upper part. Check out. Just take a moment in your standing posture. Weight a little bit forwards. Focus just behind the ball of each foot. Hips dropping back. And then sinking down. Embracing tiger, return to the mountain. Again, that sense of just pushing out a little bit, but then just letting the cycle of movement draw you back. And of course, one of the principal movements is always is going to be this pull of gravity working through your body. Okay, and then one more time. And stand. Shake out. Lovely. Thank you as always, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers, Mike. I enjoyed